I'm Evelyn Monroe, 34, the eldest daughter of a Southern political dynasty. My younger sister, Charlotte Monroe, 31, is the family's golden child, glamorous, adored, media-trained. When our father dies, his multi-million-dollar philanthropic foundation is supposed to be co-managed by both of us. Instead, Charlotte secretly petitions the board to remove me and position herself as sole heir, claiming I'm unstable and financially reckless. She schedules a grand gala at the Monroe estate announcing her takeover. But what she doesn't know, I've been auditing the foundation for 2 years, and I've already set the trap. The first time my sister tried to erase me, it wasn't subtle. It happened under a crystal chandelier the size of a small car, in front of 200 people wearing silk and inherited arrogance. And I smiled while she did it. Evelyn won't be joining us in leadership, Charlotte said into the microphone, her voice smooth as aged bourbon. After careful consideration, the board has decided it's best I assume full stewardship of the Monroe Foundation moving forward. The room applauded. Soft at first, then louder. Because in Charleston, when a Monroe speaks, you clap. Even if you're clapping at a lie. I stood 3 feet away from her on the ballroom platform of our family estate, hands folded in front of me, wearing the navy dress my father once said made me look like someone who handles storms. My sister's hand rested lightly on my elbow, a gesture that looked affectionate. It was restraint. And in that moment I understood something with crystal clarity. She thought she had already won. Let me tell you who we were before that night. Our father, Senator William Monroe, didn't build wealth. He inherited it. Then he multiplied it. Old tobacco money turned into infrastructure contracts. Infrastructure turned into private equity. Private equity into a philanthropic foundation so massive it funded half the museums in South Carolina. The Monroe Foundation wasn't just charity. It was influence. And from the outside, Charlotte and I looked like the perfect heirs. But inside this house, we were cast in very different roles. Charlotte was beauty and brightness. Blonde hair, camera-ready smile, debutante queen at 19. She could make donors cry and then double their pledges. I was numbers. I went to Wharton. I built spreadsheets instead of social circles. I understood endowments, risk exposure, tax structuring, offshore grant flow. My father used to say, Charlotte sells the dream. Evelyn protects it. But when he died suddenly of a stroke 18 months ago, something shifted. Grief makes people honest, or greedy. In his will, my father structured the foundation so Charlotte and I were co-executive directors. Equal authority, equal voting power. But there was a clause. If one director was deemed unfit or damaging to the foundation's reputation, the board could remove her with a majority vote. It was meant as protection. Charlotte turned it into a weapon. 3 months after the funeral, rumors began that I was difficult, that I'd been questioning donor allocations aggressively, that I was emotionally unstable after Dad's death. Subtle whispers, perfectly placed. And then the final move. She requested a closed-door board meeting without me. I found out 2 days later, through a forwarded email. Evelyn, she said when I confronted her in the sunroom overlooking the marsh, you've been tense. The board's concerned. The board or you? She tilted her head in that way she does when she wants to appear wounded. This isn't personal. It was deeply personal. Because what she didn't mention was this. For the past 2 years, before Dad even died, I had been quietly auditing the foundation's internal accounts. Not because I suspected Charlotte, because I suspected our CFO. But numbers don't lie. People do. And somewhere in those numbers, I'd noticed patterns, small consulting fees, event inflation. A marketing firm paid 3 times market rate, all connected to Charlotte's social circle. Nothing illegal? Yet, but enough to be interesting. Still, I didn't expose it. I wanted proof. I wanted certainty. I wanted to believe she wouldn't cross that line. The gala where she announced my removal was called Monroe Legacy, the Next Chapter. My name was on the invitation, but not in the program. When she took the microphone, I watched the board members, men in navy suits who'd known me since I was 12. None of them looked at me. They looked at her. She had already spoken to them individually. She had already planted the narrative. She's too aggressive with donors. She lacks warmth. She's not built for public leadership. In the South, a woman being too aggressive is social euthanasia. And when the applause finished, she leaned toward me and whispered, "You're better behind the scenes anyway." I felt something inside my chest go very, very still. Not rage, not heartbreak. Calculation. Because Charlotte had made one critical mistake. She thought my silence meant weakness. She didn't realize it meant I was counting. That night, after the gala ended and the donors drifted away in black cars, I walked alone through my father's study. Mahogany shelves, leather chair, the smell of old paper and cigar smoke. I opened the foundation's secure server from his desk, and for the first time, I didn't just review the suspicious payments. I exported everything, every invoice, every contract, every private email thread. I called our external auditor in New York, the one Charlotte didn't know I'd retained months ago, and I said 4 words that changed everything. "Start the forensic review." There was a pause on the other end. "Evelyn, are you sure?" I looked at my reflection in the dark window. Charlotte's silhouette still visible through the ballroom doors, laughing with donors, champagne glass raised. "Yes," I said calmly. "I'm done being polite." She thought she removed me. What she really did was free me. And if she wanted the foundation, if she wanted the spotlight, if she wanted to stand in front of 200 people and declare herself sole heir to Monroe influence, fine, I would give her the stage, and then I would burn the script. Charlotte believed in optics. I believed in paper trails. That was the fundamental difference between us. 2 days after the gala, I boarded a 6:10 a.m. flight to New York under the guise of taking space. I posted a photo from JFK with a caption about reflection and healing. I let the Charleston social circuit assume I was licking my wounds. Meanwhile, in a glass office overlooking Madison Avenue, I sat across from Arthur Klein, the forensic accountant my father had trusted for 20 years. Arthur didn't waste time. "I've skimmed the preliminary exports," he said, sliding a folder across the table. "Evelyn, this isn't sloppy. It's layered." "How layered?" "Enough that if we're right, this isn't just donor inflation. It's misdirection." My pulse stayed even. "Walk me through it." He opened the file. Consulting firm, Carter and Blythe Strategic Branding. Retainer, $480,000 annually. Services, donor cultivation and media positioning. I knew the firm. Carter was Charlotte's college roommate's husband. "What's the actual market value?" I asked. Arthur didn't smile. "About $150,000. So roughly $330,000 a year, evaporating. And that was only one contract. Then there were event budgets. The Monroe Youth Initiative Gala billed at $1.2 million. Actual vendor cost, closer to $800,000. Where did the extra $400,000 go? Into shell subcontractors, 2 of which were registered under LLCs, formed 6 months after Charlotte became co-director. I didn't speak for a long time, because here's the thing about betrayal at this scale. It doesn't feel explosive. It feels surgical, precise, calculated. Like someone studied your blind spots and slipped through them deliberately. For the next 6 weeks, my life became split screen. Public Evelyn, quiet, dignified, attending small charity luncheons without mentioning the foundation, posting tasteful photos about growth and family legacy. Private Evelyn, reviewing contracts until 2 a.m., cross-referencing IP addresses on approval emails, meeting with Arthur twice a week, building a second spreadsheet, one far more dangerous than the first. Because unlike Charlotte's whisper campaign, mine would be documented. It almost fell apart in week 3. Arthur called me at 9:17 p.m. Evelyn, the CFO, requested access logs from the archival server. My stomach tightened. Why? He claims he's doing an internal system review. No, he was checking whether anyone had accessed the historical contracts, which I had. If they discovered the forensic audit before I had full proof, Charlotte would spin it as paranoia. She'd frame me as obsessed, unstable, again. How exposed are we? I asked. Minimal, Arthur said. But you need to stop accessing from Charleston IP addresses. So I did something subtle. I emailed the board requesting a temporary leave from operational duties to focus on personal healing. I gave them what they wanted: distance. And from that distance, I operated through Arthur's firm in New York. No digital footprints tied to Monroe servers. Charlotte sent me a text the next morning. I think space is good for you. We all need to move forward gracefully. Gracefully. I stared at that word for a long time. She thought I was retreating. I was repositioning. By mid-August, Arthur had what we needed. 3 years of inflated contracts, 4 shell entities, a pattern of donor funds rerouted through event enhancement line items. Total misallocation, $2.7 million. Not personal theft in the crude sense, but misuse of nonprofit funds, a federal crime if proven intentional. And the paper trail? It pointed toward approvals from Charlotte's executive email. Now here's where the psychological layer comes in. I didn't take this to the authorities. Not yet. Instead, I requested a full board meeting. In person, at the estate. And I framed it as reconciliation. I called Charlotte directly. She answered on the 3rd ring. Evelyn, she said, pleasantly surprised. To what do I owe this miracle? I want to come back. Silence, then softer. That's unexpected. I don't want division between us. Let's present unity before the Fall Donor Summit. There it was. The summit. Our largest annual fundraiser. 400 guests, national press, political heavyweights. Charlotte hesitated just long enough for me to hear her, calculating. You'd be willing to stand beside me? She asked. Yes, I said smoothly. I'll even publicly endorse your leadership. Her inhale was almost imperceptible. Hook set. The second near disaster came from someone I hadn't accounted for. My Aunt Margaret, the unofficial matriarch of Charleston society. She requested lunch, private club, linen napkins, judgment in pearls. I've heard rumors, she said without preamble. About you stirring trouble in New York. So Charlotte had begun probing. Fishing. Testing whether I was building something. I kept my posture relaxed. I met with grief counselors, Aunt Margaret. Is that what qualifies as trouble now? Her eyes narrowed. You've always been sharper than you let on. Thank you. Just remember, she said softly, public disgrace is difficult to recover from. I met her gaze evenly. Yes, I said. It is. The donor summit was scheduled for October 14th. The invitation read, Monroe Foundation, a unified vision for tomorrow. Charlotte insisted I help finalize the speech. I did. I edited it beautifully. Lines about transparency, integrity, stewardship. She practiced it in front of the ballroom mirror. You always were better with words, she said. I'm better with numbers, I replied. She smiled like it was a compliment. Behind the scenes, I did 3 things. Secured Arthur's finalized forensic report. Bound, indexed, irrefutable. Scheduled a private pre-summit board session. Mandatory attendance. Legal counsel present. Ensured the Foundation's liability insurance policy was reviewed and flagged for potential fraud exposure. Charlotte thought the summit was her coronation. It was actually her audit. 3 nights before the summit, she came to my wing of the estate. No cameras, no board, just us. I'm glad you came around, she said, leaning against the doorway. I never wanted us to fight. You didn't fight, I said calmly. You replaced me." She rolled her eyes lightly. "You're too sensitive about control. This is about optics. You're not built for the public side." "And you are?" She smiled, slow, confident. "I was born for it." I stepped closer. "You're right," I said gently. "You were." She didn't hear the tense, because by that point I had already sent a sealed copy of the forensic report to the Foundation's legal advisor with instructions to open it 1 hour before the pre-summit board meeting. I had already confirmed federal nonprofit compliance statutes with Arthur's legal team, and I had already drafted my own speech, not for the ballroom, for the boardroom. Charlotte went to bed that night dreaming of applause. I slept like a woman who had finished counting. October 14th arrived bright and ruthless. The estate shimmered with floral installations and catered ambition. 400 chairs, crystal glasses, press badges, at the entrance. Charlotte wore ivory. I wore charcoal. She mistook it for support. It was armor. At 3 p.m., 2 hours before guests arrived, the board gathered in the West Conference Room. Legal counsel present. Charlotte radiant. I sat quietly, folder in front of me, the Foundation seal embossed in gold. She had no idea what was inside. And as she began speaking about moving forward in unity, I watched the legal advisor open the report. His expression changed first, then the treasurer's. Then the silence shifted. Charlotte noticed. "Is something wrong?" she asked lightly. The legal advisor closed the folder slowly. "Charlotte," he said carefully, "we need to discuss several financial irregularities." Her smile flickered. Just barely. And in that flicker, for the first time since the chandelier announcement, she looked uncertain. The trap had closed. She just hadn't realized it yet. The first crack in Charlotte's composure was almost invisible. "But I've studied markets my entire life, and when something unstable shifts, you feel it before it collapses." The legal advisor cleared his throat. "Charlotte," he repeated slower this time, "these discrepancies require immediate clarification before tonight's summit proceeds." The room went still. Outside the tall conference windows, caterers were unloading champagne. String quartets were tuning. The Monroe crest banners were being adjusted so the gold thread caught the light. Inside, the temperature dropped 10 degrees. Charlotte blinked once. Then she did what she has always done best. She performed. "I'm sure this is some kind of clerical misunderstanding," she said lightly. "We can address it after the summit. Donors are already en route." The treasurer slid the report toward her. "No," he said firmly. "We address it now." She glanced at me, just for a second, and there it was. Suspicion. Not fear. Not yet. Just the instinctive awareness that something had moved behind her back. 2 hours later, the ballroom filled anyway, because I allowed it to. That was the twist. I didn't cancel the summit. I didn't call federal investigators ahead of time. I didn't sabotage the guest list. I let the night begin exactly as she'd planned. 400 guests seated. Press cameras positioned. Crystal reflecting chandelier light. Charlotte walked onto the stage at 6:07 p.m., radiant and controlled. If you didn't know what had happened upstairs in that boardroom, you'd think nothing was wrong. She began her speech. "Tonight marks a new chapter for the Monroe Foundation." Her voice didn't shake. Impressive. She spoke about integrity, transparency, future stewardship, and as she delivered the line, "We remain unwavering in our commitment to ethical leadership." I stepped away from the side curtain. Because here's what she didn't know. The board had voted during the emergency session, unanimously, to suspend her executive, authority pending investigation, effective immediately, and they had asked me to announce it, publicly. Not because I demanded it, but because they understood something at last. The Foundation's reputation could not survive quiet correction. It required decisive clarity. Charlotte reached the end of her prepared remarks. Applause rose. She smiled, and then I walked onto the stage beside her. The room shifted, subtly, because for months I had been absent from the spotlight. Charlotte's smile tightened. She leaned toward me slightly, whispering through perfect teeth. "What are you doing?" "Protecting the legacy," I said calmly. I took the microphone. "Thank you all for being here tonight." The applause softened, curious now, measured. "I know many of you have supported our family for decades. Your trust means everything." Charlotte's fingers tightened around her champagne glass. "Earlier today," I continued evenly, "the Monroe Foundation Board completed an internal financial review. The air changed. You could feel it. Wealthy rooms have a particular sound when they become uncomfortable. It's the sound of fabric shifting, of donors leaning forward, of press cameras adjusting focus. Several significant irregularities were identified," I said clearly. "Until those matters are resolved, Charlotte Monroe has been suspended from executive duties." There it was. No embellishment, no cruelty, just fact. The gasp rolled through the ballroom like wind through dry leaves. Charlotte's face went white, not pale. White. "What are you talking about?" she said sharply, forgetting the microphone was still live. The press caught every syllable. The board chair stepped onto the stage. "This is not an allegation," he said into the second microphone. "It is a procedural action. Transparency is our priority." Charlotte turned to me, and for the first time in her life, she wasn't performing. She was furious. "You did this," she hissed under her breath. I met her gaze calmly. "No," I said. "You did." But here's the part she never saw coming. The real move had happened 3 days earlier. When Arthur finalized the forensic audit, I didn't just send it to the board. I quietly forwarded it to the foundation's liability insurer. Nonprofit insurance carriers take potential fraud extremely seriously. Within 48 hours, their internal compliance team contacted the board directly. If the foundation appeared to suppress findings or delay corrective action, coverage could be revoked. And if that happened, every board member would be personally exposed. I didn't threaten them. I didn't argue. I simply ensured the risk was visible. And once powerful men realize their own liability is at stake, they act. Swiftly. That was the psychological layer. Charlotte believed the board was loyal to legacy. In truth, they were loyal to self-preservation. I simply adjusted the equation. Charlotte attempted to recover. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said shakily, reclaiming the mic, "this is a misunderstanding. I assure you." But the legal advisor had already signaled the press. A formal statement was distributed digitally to every registered journalist in the room. Screens lit up across banquet tables. Phones vibrated, and in under 90 seconds, Charlotte's suspension was live on 3 regional news feeds. Her PR advisor rushed toward the stage. Too late. Because once narrative leaves your control, it never returns the same. She turned to me again, desperation replacing anger. "You could have handled this privately." I looked at her steadily. "You handled my removal privately." That was the difference. I didn't smear her. I didn't whisper. I presented evidence, in the open. By 9 p.m., half the donors had left early. By midnight, Charlotte's name trended locally. By morning, federal compliance auditors formally requested documentation. The $2.7 million wasn't personal theft in the traditional sense, but it was reckless mismanagement, and reckless mismanagement of nonprofit funds. Destroys reputations permanently. Charlotte hired legal counsel within 48 hours. Publicly stated she would cooperate fully. Privately, she moved out of the estate 2 weeks later. The board appointed me interim executive director pending investigation, and for the first time since our father's death, the foundation felt steady. Not glamorous, not dramatic, just stable, which, in my world, is far more powerful. She came to see me once more, not at the estate, at a quiet cafe downtown. No pearls, no cameras, just Charlotte. I never meant for it to spiral, she said quietly. I just needed the foundation to look bigger than it was. For who? I asked. For everyone, she said defensively. For you, I corrected gently. She didn't deny it. Silence stretched between us. You didn't have to destroy me, she whispered. I took a slow sip of coffee. I didn't destroy you, Charlotte. You built a house of mirrors. I just turned on the lights. The investigation took 4 months. No criminal charges were filed, but restitution agreements were signed, consulting contracts terminated, governance restructured. And Charlotte? She resigned voluntarily to focus on personal matters, which is Charleston language for removed, quietly, permanently. The foundation stabilized. Donor confidence returned. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the shadow sister. I wasn't the quiet one. I wasn't the backup plan. I was the steward, not because I demanded it, but because I proved it. Last week, I walked through my father's study again, the same mahogany shelves, the same leather chair, but the air felt different, lighter. Not because Charlotte was gone, but because I wasn't fighting to be seen anymore. I had stopped competing, stopped defending, stopped explaining. I had simply documented the truth and let it speak louder than any chandelier announcement ever could. People call it revenge. It wasn't. Revenge is emotional. This was structural. She tried to erase me from my father's legacy, so I made sure the record showed exactly who was rewriting it. And here's the lesson I learned the hard way. When someone builds power on perception, you don't attack them. You audit them. Because numbers don't raise their voices. They just wait. And when the lights come on, they don't scream. They expose. And exposure is quieter than revenge, but far more permanent.